Hello, this is another video about trigonometry and we're going to be looking at deciding which trigonometric function we should use to solve a problem. So if we've got a trig problem with a right-angled triangle in it, there are three different trig functions that we need to know, and we need to know which one is the useful one for the problem we're looking at. So first of all, what are those three trig functions? Well, they are called sine, cosine, and the third one is called tangent. And you will have, on your scientific calculator, you will have a button for each of these functions. And so the sine button will look like this on your Casio calculator, or this on your Sharp calculator. So this one is our sine function. And then you can probably spot the other ones. Cosine is this one here, and tangent is this one here. And we normally abbreviate those to sin, cos, and tan. Okay, so how do we know which one of these is the useful one then? Well, these formula triangles help us decide. So in these triangles, we've got each of those trig functions, the letters for them. So S, this one is for sine. C, this one is for cosine. T, that one is for tangent. And then the other letters in those triangles represent the sides of the triangles. So this one's my sine triangle, this one's my cosine triangle, and I'll show you how to use these triangles in the next video. But for now, all we're doing is deciding which one goes with which problem. So the O and the H stand for the opposite and the hypotenuse. I'll write the abbreviations underneath. So we've got the opposite and we've got the hypotenuse. So what that means is, if the question I'm trying to solve involves the opposite and the hypotenuse, then the trig function I'm going to use, the button on the calculator I'm going to use, is the sine function, the sine button. If I've got, what have I got here? A and H, so that's adjacent and hypotenuse. So if I've got an adjacent and a hypotenuse, then the function I'm going to use is the cosine function, the cos button on my calculator. And the third one then, if I've got O and A, so that's opposite and adjacent, if those are the two sides involved in my problem, I'm going to be using the tangent function, the tan button on my calculator. So the opposite and the adjacent. So all I need is to know the sides that are involved in the problem, and once I know that, I can decide which of these three functions is going to be the useful one. And in the next video, I'll show you how to actually use these functions, sine, cosine, and tangent, but for now we're just going to decide which one is the useful one. So we've got a problem here, and it's just asking us which trig function should I use. So the side that I know is this one. We know that it's 10 centimetres. The side that I want to find, the one with this question mark on it, it's this one here. So these are the two sides that are involved. So let's work out what they're called first of all. So we've got our right angle down here, so this is the hypotenuse, this is the marked angle, so this side must be the opposite, and this side over here then must be the adjacent. So those are the two sides involved, the opposite and the adjacent. So am I using sine? Well, no, I'm not going to be using sine because that needs the opposite and the hypotenuse, and the hypotenuse isn't involved in this problem. I don't know it, and I'm not trying to find it. How about cosine then? Well, the adjacent is involved. It's the one I'm trying to find, but again, it's got the hypotenuse, hasn't it? And the hypotenuse isn't involved in this problem, so it must be this one because I know the opposite. I want to find the adjacent, so that's the one that's going to be useful. So which is the useful trig function for this one? Tan or tangent. That's the trig function I should use for this one. Let's look at another. Okay, so first off we're going to label our sides. So I reckon right angles over here. This guy then must be the hypotenuse. So I'm going to label that as the hypotenuse. Here's my other angle that I know, and this 11 centimetre side is next to it, isn't it? It's not opposite, it's next to it, so that must be the adjacent. So I'm going to label this as the adjacent. And now I just need to look at my triangles. Which one am I using then? So it's not sine. It's the adjacent and the hypotenuse that are involved. So it must be this one, right? That's the one that I'm going to use because it involves the adjacent and the hypotenuse. So the answer is cosine. I'm going to use cosine for this problem. We'll do a few more. So which function am I going to use here? Well, we've got, here's the angle that I know. This one is opposite that, so that must be my opposite. This one is not the hypotenuse, is it? Because that's the hypotenuse. It's next to my named angle, so that must be the adjacent. ADJ adjacent. So which of my functions is involving the opposite and the adjacent? Well, it's not this one. It's not this one. It must be this one. That's the function I'm going to have to use here. It's going to be tangent again. Tangent. Cool. Let's look at this one then. I've got right angle over here. This must be the hypotenuse. Hypotenuse. How about this one over here? Well, it's opposite my marked angle, so that guy must be the opposite. So these are the two sides that are involved, the hypotenuse and the opposite. That's going to be not this one, not this one, it's this one, isn't it? Sine this time. So the function I'm using for this problem will be the sine function. I'm going to do a few more. How about on this one? We're going to label the sides and find out. So this 14 centimetre side, that's the hypotenuse. The one with the question mark, that is the adjacent. So which of these functions am I using? Adjacent, hypotenuse, it's this one, isn't it? I'm using the cosine function. Let's do one more, shall we? Which trig function am I going to use here? Well, this side here is the opposite. It's opposite the marked angle. This side here must be the hypotenuse. Hypotenuse. So which of my functions involves the opposite and the hypotenuse? Is this one. I'm going to be using the sine function here. Okay. In the next video, I will show you how we use the sine, cosine, and tangent function to answer questions like this, but that will do for now. Cool. I'll see you later.